So having an impossible goal, or at least a near impossible goal, I think is great because it just keeps you on that path.
So you mentioned being a co-owner of a company that supports 150 plus creators. Yeah.
Yes.
How did this get started? And how does that responsibility, when you think about yourself as what you want to do versus what the company needs, how do you balance those?
So the company's Standard/Nebula, for context. And personally, I'm not that operation involved where I'm like, making the day-to-day decisions that, make or break a given person's career. But I think more broadly, I think just fundamentally, it's like creators running the business that is for creators. It just means that we have the frame of reference to be able to kind of understand the magnitude of decisions and decide and like know that like when we're making these tiny changes, when it's amplified by 150 or 200 clients, that is make or break, even if it's a tiny change. Of course, that's for better or worse, because on the worst side, it means that we will beat a decision to death because we're so scared of making the wrong one. But yeah, I think it's just like the right context leads to really good things in the creator ecosystem.
So for context, I'm here with Sam. You might know him from Wendover Productions. Half as interesting, jet lagged, but you might not have known that Sam is co-owner, to my previous question, of one of, I think, the first and largest creator-owned companies in the world.
Sure.
Because, yeah, sure, there are big creator productions.
It's the largest independently owned streaming site. Independently owned streaming site bar our partner CuriosityStream.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah, as far as we can tell. We don't really know. There might be another bigger one in like India that we just don't know about, but as far as we can tell.
What I love, your last point, you said that the responsibility of running a company supporting 150 plus creators, you spoke about an element of fear too. That's why you beat the decision to death, because you want to do right by everybody.
Yeah. And I think that goes down to like even just my own company, like Wendover, where, it's 7 employees directly on payroll. Even at that scale, I think there is that fear too, because that's the responsibility you have, I think, as someone running a business, to have that fear for the livelihood and the work-life balance and the just general well-being of everyone who's kind of made the leap to work for you. Or work with you. So you got to have a little bit of that fear, I think.
I love you bringing that up because I think people believe you become CEO, you have freedom.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I feel like I'm quoting Uncle Ben. I'm going to paraphrase him, but with that great freedom comes great responsibility. Ooh. By building what you used to do yourself into a company with 7 employees for yourself, and now a whole host for the broader company of Standard and Nebula, now it's like you got to make sure it keeps going because you're supporting people.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you put it in that directly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel this every day now.
But I mean, I think it's both like you got to. I mean, it's also not just like you got to keep it going to support them, but like you've got to make it good so that they want to. So all of our clients want to stay our clients and keep the business running. It goes both ways, and so it's that's about the perpetual ongoing process of just making your work the best possible thing for them.
Yeah, I get that. So today we're gonna get to know each other a little bit better. Just to our previous topic of conversation, I think a lot of people, Sam, actually know you as a creator, and more are getting to know you as a businessman and entrepreneur.
Sure.
I mean, I remember you were also judged on the Shark Tank competition we hosted a while ago.
I was literally downstairs.
Exactly, just one floor down. We're literally talking about you as co-owner of one of the largest and first creator-owned companies in the world, barring ones we don't know about.
Yep.
But what I really want to dig into is you as a person.
Oh.
I feel like we've, as viewers, gotten to see a little bit of this. Like with Jet Lagged, your first face on camera.
Yep.
I remember, and we just talked about this, Brian, Real Engineering, initially all your shots were from down low. And now all your shots are from up high where people can see you directly.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool evolution.
Well, it's really awkward filming yourself running around in public.
Yeah.
So, so I think it's the evolution of understanding how to not give a. Are we allowed to?
Oh, we're allowed to
profanities?
curse.
Will you bleep them out?
Yeah, sometimes if you'd like.
I don't want them to know that I use. So, no. Oh wait, that doesn't. That goes against my point of not giving a shit.
So Brian, Real Engineering, did mention that you've started cursing more around him. I think this is his influence rubbing off on you.
Well, we just did a season where Brian was the guest.
Yeah.
And like we literally know because we bleep out every single profanity in it. And our audio editor sent like his list, and it was like you had to like scroll through it because there were so many just in episode 1 because Brian has a little bit of a potty mouth. And
we love him for it, to be clear.
sort of.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Sure.
And as long as you're not our audio editor. Yeah, he's just a bad influence on me, basically.
You know, he told me that your nickname, Wendy, apparently he gave it to you.
I don't
but
know.
Apparently, initially, you did not like it.
I still don't like it.
Does he know this?
Yes.
Okay, we got to cut to when I just spoke with Brian a few hours ago. It concluded with him saying, and I think he really likes it now.
No, I have a name. It's Sam. Wendy is the name of a 70-year-old woman.
Brian literally said, I guess if you call somebody something enough times, they actually grow to like it. We discuss it as the Stockholm Syndrome version of nicknames.
I understand that like having a nickname, it's like endearing. It shows that like, you're friends. Yeah, whatever. But still, like I would like it to be a nickname that is not the literal name of 70-year-old women because they just say it in public. And like Wendy is a real name. So people look around looking for a Wendy. And I don't think I fit the image of the average Wendy personally.
You don't, demographically speaking.
Thank you.
And so the goal, you're familiar with this, but our viewers might not be. So the whole concept is based off 36 questions to fall in love.
Yeah, so it'd be a lot weirder if you weren't like in a relationship.
I'm actually figuring that part of my life out right now.
Oh, damn, I'm sorry.
But regardless, I believe the Greeks and Romans talked a bit about there are many different types of love.
Sure.
And I think a big realization for me growing up was friendship too is a type of love that I'm growing increasingly more comfortable sharing and expressing. And so for me, I'm actually excited. Yeah, we're going to go through some questions where we get to reveal a little bit more ourselves and we go back and forth. But my ultimate goal is I just get to know you a little bit more as a person.
Nice.
And so the way this starts is actually with eye contact. We're going to stare lovingly or not lovingly to be determined into each other's eyes for a prolonged period of time. And the first person who looks away or blinks has to draw the first card.
Oh, I'm so good at this.
Oh, so you're actually an expert at eye
Yeah.
staring contests, yeah?
Yeah. No, like in middle school, we would like just do this like super competitively. And for some reason, I was always the best. And to the point where like you just have like tears running down your face because your eyes are like trying to water it and like you're forcing yourself not. Anyway, we can go.
Okay, so a mix of, it sounds like competitive drive.
Yes.
Preternaturally strong eye tear duct resistance.
Sure.
And maybe a comfortableness with intimacy.
Oh, no, it's just about the competitive.
Oh, okay, definitely just the first two.
Yeah.
Definitely not the third.
Nope.
Not even young Sam in middle school.
Absolutely not. I went to an all-boys school. Definitely not.
All right, then. Well, let's get started. 3, 2, 1, go.
That was pathetic.
I don't even think I put up a good fight.
No, that was like 4 seconds.
I was intimidated. I'm playing the champion. Usually, when
I'm
I let
actually
people
terrible
know.
at this. That was all just psychological warfare to get you
Wow,
going.
that was like next
genius,
level
right?
mind games.
Yeah, maybe.
It's almost like, I believe the concept is called a multiple choice story. I'm like, did you even go to an all boys school? Did you even go to middle school? Did you even do staring contests?
We already played two truths and a lie, and you didn't even give me
Are
an answer.
you even really Sam?
Yes.
That's actually a very deep existential question if we think about it.
Yeah.
But regardless, I'm gonna pull the first question here.
Okay.
Oh, this is actually potentially a spicy one.
So wait, are you answering it or am I answering?
So I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking.
Yeah.
Wait.
We're gonna take
why
turns.
does the loser have to answer the first question? Like when you play truth or dare, you don't like. I guess that's not really a good analogy, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, the question is, what was your first impression of me?
Oh, well, this is actually. I feel like this is a pretty good story actually, because we met like very early into you starting Karat.
Yes.
It was. I remember specifically because it was deep quarantine, I think it was May 2020. And I remember because I was back home in DC, and I was like, when I took the call, it was like, super nice spring day, and I was laying in the hammock in the backyard and stuff.
Lovely.
And Dave's my agent at Standard, and he got connected with you, and it was kind of like basically vetting the business model.
Yeah.
And he knew that I was I'd done a lot of like the credit card hacking kind of thing for like, you know, frequent flyer or whatever. So like I knew a decent amount of credit cards. And so he brought me onto the call to basically help vet the company to see if it was one worth working with. And like immediately when I heard the concept, I was like, no chance.
Yeah.
This can't be. First of all, I thought it was dystopian because how it was described was, oh, your social stats determine your line of credit effectively, and I thought that sounded really dystopian. So I went into this call thinking you were going to be the average Bay Area, VC backed startup bro. And I don't even have to tell you, I guess, it's based on the question if my perception changed.
One, I'm actually very touched about that. And two, I distinctly remember, so context, I cold emailed Dave to talk about Karat. And the very first email he sent back was, I think this is a terrible idea.
Yep.
Jury's out if you're a terrible person.
Yeah. And
I'm super down to take this call to tell you exactly why it's awful. And this was, in fact, I think this was like literally March, April 2020 when the entire world had collapsed. And I remembered, as you know, I never really wanted to build a card company. I wanted to work with creators and figure out a way to do the business financial side, was trying to figure out what's that first initial product. And so I didn't even know if what we're doing was right.
Yeah.
And so I had that call with Dave, and I basically was like, yeah, dude, I actually don't know if this is the right idea at all, but here's how I got here.
Yeah.
And we actually just really hit it off. And then he connected me with you. He basically was like, okay, cool. I have somebody I want you to chat with, Sam from Wendover Productions. And I looked up your channel, and my first thought was like, oh wait, I've definitely seen these videos before. Like, it wasn't the level of familiarity where it's like, oh yeah, Wendover Productions. Like, I know this channel.
Yep.
But it wasn't like, oh, I'd never seen this before. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm nervously but tentatively excited. Like, I want to learn more about Sam. And I Google you, like, you have like a cult following, like on Reddit.
Sure.
Which I thought was so fascinating. You, this mysterious voice, face unknown, not even on camera, talking about airplanes.
Yeah.
And this entire community of people has just come up obsessed and talking about what you're doing. And I'm like reading through the comments, and I'm like, is he like a cult leader? Like, clearly very, very smart, obviously from your videos.
Oh wait, I shouldn't say that's not.
You're like, no. No, as you turn to the subreddit that might be watching, no, not a cult leader. And I remember thinking, like, who's this man who is clearly smart and good at explaining things, but also has like a cult of personality behind him? And I was like, well, I don't know, but I'm both excited and scared. So my first impression was like, oh God, I hope Sam doesn't think I just suck as a human being. That was actually my goal. It wasn't even, oh yeah, like I really think you should work with Karat, which probably came through. It was more just like, hey Sam, like I'm Eric, like here's what I'm doing. Like, what do you think? Here's the mechanics behind why I think it could be a thing, but also like maybe not.
Yep.
And I remember we just actually ended up having a really good conversation about not even Karat per se, but just like how the financial system works.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I think the difference between when we started that call and when we ended that call is like we understood that, like, oh, it's not the card.
Yeah.
It's financial services for creators.
Exactly.
And then we understood why there's this massive opportunity and massive hole in the market. And so understanding that, even if it wasn't like a specific roadmap, if we didn't say like, oh, 2024, we're doing this, it was the long-term vision. And I think, you managed to communicate it well enough that, we understood that vision. I mean, I've been excited to be on the ride.
Thank you. It basically was a mix of us just riffing on the nature of the financial systems today and how screwed up they are.
Yes.
And you being like, why do you think this is going to work? And me being like, Sam, I'm honestly not sure. And I want to make that very clear, but I'm trying.
And I think this was a direct contributor to the fact that I believe you told me I was like card holder number 12 or 13 or 14 or something, which pretty proud of. I want it like etched in the card,
Oh, we can do that.
Like,
I want everyone to know Sam here was literally like in the first 15 people on Karat ever. He believed in us when nobody else did. I don't even know, believed in us per se, but believed in the vision and our intentions.
And you.
I'm blushing. Can I share another story about first impressions? So that's the first time we ever spoke.
Yeah.
But the first time we ever met was when we went out and gambled with Mr. Beast and Tirzu and Real Engineering in Vegas.
Is that really the first time we met?
I think that might have been.
Probably made us seem like much bigger ballers than we really are.
Yeah, actually, that story alone makes it sound very cool. But I remember I hadn't gone to talk with you too much on that trip. First of all, I was honored that Dave even invited me. I was like, oh, gee, thanks. Like, this is literally something you're doing together with your community. Like, I'd be honored to come along. And I remember like not getting to talk with you a bunch. And I was like, oh, I like really would love to. And then I remember me being stupid. I hadn't actually brought any money to play poker with because like this is like the first time I've been to Vegas. I like didn't really know how it works. And I was like, oh, like, and then there's like an ATM, but I like didn't have my debit card with me. And I was just like, oh, like, Sam, like, I want my debit card. And you're just like, here, just take this and Venmo me later. And I know that sounds like table stakes for being like a basically decent human being. But like, I don't know if someone like I didn't know at all is like, because, you know, everyone's like, oh, I'll Venmo you. And then like half the time they never actually Venmo you because not due to intention. They just like forget or life comes up.
I could have like canceled you on the internet. It's like, that's like social insurance.
Yeah, okay, that's true. I wasn't thinking about that part. Good to know. But I was just like, oh, it's just like so chill. And I was like, oh, like, thanks, Sam. And I just distinctly remember having that experience with you. And I was like, oh, that's like a nice little thing that I appreciated getting to know the person.
Were you up that night or?
You know, I remember actually playing poker at the table. The very first hand I had when the whole river was played, I actually ended up having a full house. But I folded very early because Jimmy, Mr. Beast, had gone in really hard, obnoxiously
He's
so.
impossible to play against.
Yeah, because he's so not caring about the pot size.
So unpredictable, and like you can't predict someone who has like zero attachment to the amount of money that he plays with.
Exactly. Whereas like I actually do have attachment to my money, not being Mr. Beast.
And so he's able to just like bully you out of your
hand. And so he basically bullied me out of my hand, and then we showed all of our cards. He had absolutely nothing, and I like folded on like a potential that actually turned into a full house.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm sad.
Yep.
And I don't think I can play well, but I still had a good time overall.
Yeah.
All right, so now your turn. Let's go on to level 2.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
You want to draw on a card?
Okay. So we both answer, but you answer first, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, this is just a framing device for us to get to know each other a little bit better.
Ooh. What title would you give this chapter in your life?
I like to think of life as eras. I think.
Eras, wow.
Yeah, exactly. This is my I'm trying hard to not fail era. And to put that in context, what were the previous eras that I've been through? So the first experience of my life was the try hard era, where all I cared about was external validation from other people, from what other people thought I should do, trying to get all the check marks, right? Harvard and Blackstone and McKinsey and Facebook, all the prestige, all the salary, because I thought so little of myself. The only value that I could justify to my parents, thanks for like bringing me into this world and, you know, like coming across the goddamn ocean and giving birth to me. It's like, hey, I went and got like all these shiny titles. I thought that was the only way. And I was miserable because it brought me zero meaning. Despite on the surface making my parents happy, deep down it made me absolutely miserable. So that was my try hard era. The era after that was, oh my God, I'm super depressed era, which I feel like might just structurally follow the try hard era across humanity.
Fair,
where I like started to do like a bunch of therapy. So like I literally like left Instagram, and I remember like toward the end I had like a meeting with a coworker, and she had told me that like she had done therapy before, and I was just like asking her like, like what is this therapy experience like? Like, do you think I need to do it? And she was like, well, like let's talk about this a little. And at one point she was like, oh, like why are you sad? And I started talking about my family, and she asked me questions, and then I was just like, oh, I'm crying now. Like this is weird. Like I'm not like having a tantrum, I'm just like talking. Oh no.
Let's lose a camera. Oh boy. I can swap it out. All right, you got to pick up mid-passionate story now.
Oh yeah, so I was saying, right, I went from my try-hard era into my massively depressed era.
Right.
Where I did a lot of therapy, and I met up with a coworker at Facebook where I was basically asking her like, hey, is this something I need? And when she asked me about my family, Sam, like just tears, like not even consciously. It was sort of like I'm in the middle of a conversation and I'm like, oh, water is coming out. So I left Instagram and I did an outpatient program at El Camino Hospital for like a month.
Wow.
Which is like hilarious because everyone thinks the journey in between, yeah, in a very like dark, sad way. Everyone's like, oh, like in between like Instagram and like Karat, like you must have been like grinding like Silicon Valley, like yo, like raising big dollars, talking to big YouTubers. It's like, no, I was really sad.
Yeah.
And I was in a room with other really sad people where the outcome from that was, hey, I should probably give myself a shot and do the things that I want to do. And that's when I went from triad era to depressed era to I'm trying things era and let's see what happens.
Yep.
Which was the formation of Karat, which, you know the high level, but deep down I just didn't know it would actually work. And I'm just so lucky that I get a shot to try, that people have put their faith in me. It's a lot of responsibility. Hence my current era, I'm trying really hard to not fail. I'm like, I have a shot. Let's try and use it for all that it's worth.
Yep.
So I'm really curious now. I have to ask for yourself, what are your chapters?
All of them?
Well, it doesn't have to be all of them. You can give me the abridged, the abbreviated, the compendium at a high level.
Okay. Are we starting chronologically?
What do you think is the right order, Sam, for you
I think
and your
chronologically,
story?
you got to build up to the big answer of like, what is the current era?
All right.
I think there was like, okay, so there was like, so I started doing YouTube like literally my final semester of my senior year of high school. Like that's when I started like regularly doing YouTube.
So you're like 17, 18.
18, yeah.
Very young.
Yeah. I like just turned 18, I guess. So like just legally earned the right to be able to earn income from AdSense, for example.
Nice timing.
So like literally exactly when I could turn it into a job for the first time, but it wasn't even the intention. So that was so I started then, and then by the time I started college the next fall, it had already turned into like a decent success, full-time job, effectively full-time equivalent salary. So like, it was like, that was the, that was the holy shit, this is cool era. Because like disposable income.
Yeah.
Pretty
As a
cool.
college student.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Especially as a college student, and just like, attention on the internet, and just like feeling like, you have something somewhat important to do, and like being able to travel around and like stuff like that. So that was, that was just like adjusting to that era. And a lot of travel, because suddenly I could pay for travel, and I really like travel. So a lot of travel. And then like, I'd say like by the time I got to like year 2, 3, and 4 of uni, it was more so that I was like, okay, figuring out, okay, where does this go, kind of thing. Because I kind of knew at the time, throughout uni, I didn't really want to make it into a bigger thing. I wanted to have, I'm saying uni because I went to college in the UK.
Pretty cool.
And that's what it's called there. So in case anyone's thinking I'm being pretentious, I am being pretentious, but not purposefully. Anyway, so that was like figuring out basically what I wanted to do, just in like general. Like I had no, like, year 2 of college, I didn't really have any like clear vision of just like, oh, here's what I'm going to do when I graduate. And it could have been so many different things. It could have been, so like eventually I figured out like, okay, this is big enough success. And like through those years, I started half as interesting the second channel, and that became like relatively successful. So then I graduated, and then that was when I had already done like some moves to like turn it into a bit more of a company. I was getting more involved with like Nebula and Standard from the business side, and like pretty soon after graduating, I guess like same time became an owner over there and everything.
Wow.
So then it was like, okay, let's move back to the US and let's turn this into a company. And that was, I think that was the wait, I didn't name the last era, did I?
No, you didn't. You said, holy shit, this is cool era, which was you graduating high school.
Right. Okay.
Making
So
income.
era number 2. So the rest of college was kind of just like, I don't know if I have a good name for that. I would say that was the figuring out how to be an adult phase. So like that was just like, it was literally just like, okay, I recognize that I am not capable to like do the adult things necessary to turn this into like a real company. So I'm just gonna like have my uni life, go through that, enjoy that, and then when I graduate, that's when I'll figure out what's next, or prior to graduating. So then I graduated, and like that, I think from when I graduated, which was, I don't even know when it technically was, but it was 2020. And my college experience ended by being back in the US in DC in quarantine and pressing submit on the online portal.
So you graduated during COVID.
Yes. And then I like walked downstairs like, okay, we're done.
Very anticlimactic.
A little anticlimactic. Never did a graduation or anything. Anyway, so like spring 2020 is when I graduated.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I was supposed to move to Colorado, April 1st, 2020, didn't happen. So I ended up going out there and like doing the move that I had long planned, and I already like got a place out there and everything, like mid-May 2020. And then, I pretty quickly, within a few months, I hired some people, some of which were local. I had already had one writer out in New York. Then I hired some local writers. We got an office. It was not a good time for having an office, but we got an office, and eventually we started like coming into the office and like turning it into a bit of a company. And then I think that until like there was a good like year that would name like the figuring out how to run a company era.
Yeah.
And that was like big. That was honestly a lot of just like it was less like doing nothing. It was just like I think at that era it was tough to understand how to kind of configure things in a productive manner, so that kind of employees were actually justifying or writers were actually kind of like doing enough to justify their salary. And it was a lot of like trial and error and like figuring out how to work with others, and also like trying to train these writers who came from varying backgrounds between like academic and journalism, how to do YouTube writing, which is very different. It relies on the same skills, but it's very different. So it was very much like figuring out how to run a company. And then I think it started to click maybe about a year and a half ago, like how to really dial it in. And then that really started, and like literally between Christmas and New Year's last year, I sat everyone in the company down and said, 2022, that's our growth year. That's when we're gonna like, we've learned some stuff. We've learned how to do this. We know how to work with each other. We know how to do this. 2022, we're gonna grow. And that's worked. I mean, we launched Jet Lag in March, and it's already like almost consumed my job, my job in my life. And it's the kind of thing where it's less so creating growth. In fact, it's not even creating growth. It's almost like trying to regulate growth. It's trying to do it in a manageable manner, do it and not let it distract us from our other channels, which are still big channels that we need to run and are, major part of our revenue and everything. So I think current era, both professionally and I would say personally, is like growth era. And it's been cool. It's been like, it's been like every month is different than the last, and a lot of interesting stuff going on, and enjoying it. Looking forward to it continuing and seeing where it goes and everything.
So I'm hearing the holy this is cool era. We're 18 years old. You're like, let me start making YouTube content. Growing to the, oh, cool. Like, I guess I'm in college and trying to be an adult era.
Yes.
Developing into the third, like, okay, cool. I'm growing a company and being a CEO era.
Getting like a frontal lobe in that process.
Smart.
Yeah.
Fully developing.
Yep.
And now in your fourth era, which is growth in all areas of life.
Sure.
I think a few thoughts. I think first, when you said, in a way, you're even just trying to regulate how much growth there can be, it reminds me, the CEO of Twitch, Emmett Shear, once told me that product market fit, it's when you're pushing the boulder up the hill and in a huge middle finger to Sisyphus, you actually get to the top.
Yep.
And then you start pushing it down, and at a certain point, you're not pushing it up. You're just trying to keep pace with the boulder as it rolls down. And it sounds like you're in that phase now in a way. There's so much happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Jet Lag, we just found a format that it just works, and it's like fundamentally, like as good as like the execution is. I think the execution is great, and I say that it's like personally, like I'm not operationally that involved in the editing. I'm like big picture director of it, but like the people doing the nitty gritty of it, that's not me, that's them, and they do an excellent job. And so like the execution is great, I think, but like fundamentally its success is based on the underlying like concept. So it's very much just like product market fit. We found a product that fits this market in a way. And so it's kind of like, it just grows on its own, which is awesome.
What was in your I am now growing company era as CEO? moving into the growth era, what was the inspiration behind Jetlagged, right? Behind, hey, I've done educational content off camera. Now I'm going to launch a show where I and friends are traveling across the country, competing with travel-based challenges. What was that moment? Such a high leverage inflection point.
So it was basically, it was really just like a convergence of things that happened and worked out, which is like, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, to be clear. Like it was literally just like a lot of different things converging on the right moment. But like, that's literally what our jobs are. We concept stuff out constantly to try to see if we come across something that works. And in this case, we just, we kept pushing it and we kept pushing it and we kept pushing it. And we just never saw a reason to stop developing it until the point. But like, to give the more specific answer, personally, I love travel. I constantly travel. We've already talked about that in my holy shit, I have money and now can travel everywhere era. So I love travel, and that means that like one of my favorite shows of all time was The Amazing Race. But in that case, like I always thought that The Amazing Race could be better. And the core of it, that I would usually answer the question, is just like, Amazing Race, it's kind of just like Survivor or any different reality show shoved into the travel context. And then the travel itself is kind of just like the background thing. It's just like, oh, suddenly in Switzerland, suddenly we're in Thailand, suddenly wherever. In this case, we were like, okay, but travel can be done better or worse. Like you can be good at travel and you can be bad at travel. You can optimize your flight schedules right. You can really navigate the airport right. There's a lot of like optimization that can be done. So we were thinking like, okay, let's turn travel into the game, like the process of travel itself. And where it really came together, it was, I guess, summer 2021. We were looking for a Nebula original that we could make for our streaming platform. And we really got, we had like such an ambitious slate of originals planned, and then we got COVIDed. We got, shut down because our whole concept is we were going to continue doing kind of relatively big budget on location documentaries in some of the remote places in the world, which is like the least compatible format possible for COVID years. Very bad. So we were kind of like, we had to like completely redo what our plan was. So we had done like a few things. Like for example, we did like a virtual but high production value trivia show where we had like contestants, all around the US, and we were like shipping stuff back and forth. We had like prop pieces. And so like we did like that, and that was good. And that was like, we all, I think, enjoy like the kind of game show format. And then so when it's time to do our next one, come like summer 2021, I honestly can't tell you how to, I don't remember how the nitty gritty of it went, but basically I think I brought up like this idea that I had was like, we can do Amazing Race, but better by making travel the game. And then we kind of, with Ben and Adam, we kind of ideated into like, okay, how do we turn that into an actual format that makes for something that you can communicate to people and is engaging on camera and all sorts of that. So it was really just like a very bare bones concept, and we developed it and we developed it and we developed it until, it turned into this Nebula original that we called, Half as Interesting's Crime Spree, because it was based on a Half as Interesting brand.
Nice.
And in that context, it was like more produced, more scripted than it actually turns out on the YouTube channel, in that we were trying to break 8 of those kind of weird laws that are still on the books all across America while Ben and Adam were chasing me around America. And then we realized like, oh, the reason why this works is not because we're doing these weird laws. It's because like actually the fundamental game mechanics of it, like that's why people love it. And people loved it immediately, even when it was Nebula original. So then we were like looking, we'd already planned like, okay, we want to do another entertainment channel, entertainment focused channel. So kind of like an offshoot of the Half as Interesting brand. And then we went and developed. And then it was like, okay, let's do it.
That. I feel like too, in listening to you describe your eras, it's like we're writing and crafting our own narratives. It's like Sam as a person.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
You've been from holy this is a thing, to I am figuring out to be an adult, to I'm now a CEO, to just growth.
Yeah. Although I don't think it's like as purposeful as that makes it seem.
Right. And that's actually the point I was leading to. I think growing up, I used to think of everything in terms of stories, and that I was actually bound by the frameworks I put on myself. I try to make sense of my past by these are the chapters that I followed and these are the chapters that need to come next. But I think the reality is actually what you just talked about. In the moment, you don't know what the hell is going on.
No. And like, I think that's like an important thing to recognize as like, this might not be, this is kind of aside from the point, but like I'll bring this back to the point. Like for the longest while, I was really worried about the longevity of YouTube and like YouTube as a platform and how long, because I felt like this is amazing that this works. Like I can just make good videos and then actually make decent money and like hire people and scale it and everything. Like there's like no chance that this business model survives, right? This is too good of a deal. And so I was, and honestly, like that kind of informed that era through college where I like didn't really want to scale it because I wanted to figure out like, okay, you know, I'm getting a college degree. I have a relatively decent ability to get, you know, a relatively good job. And to be honest, like go down a similar track that you went to.
I know your family actually.
I mean, my dad worked at McKinsey and my brother works in like that entire.
We could have been colleagues.
It terrifies me, but because I'm glad I didn't go down that path.
Yeah.
But
and I'm glad I left it.
Yep, and you know, I think that's pretty much everyone I know has a similar opinion, and they left.
Why did you, as it is, Sam, break bad?
What does that mean?
So there's the show Breaking Bad, and it's a reference to, here's Walter White, a chemistry teacher, very solid, stable, and then at some point he broke bad. He took a left turn and became a meth dealer. And I'm not saying you dealt meth, Sam, but you could have just ended up being a consultant like the rest of your family. Instead, you decided to be that kid doing YouTube.
Well, I think to give my family credit, they also all eventually, or at least are planning to break bad. But
you were one of the first, I assume.
Roughly, yeah. But you know, I think I think like talking about it in this context makes it seem like it's way more
intentional
than it
and
really
narrative
is.
driven.
It was literally just like I uploaded a YouTube video because I liked making videos and had been like that kid who was always doing like film club and you know, and I'd like messed around with YouTube videos in the past and all that. I uploaded one. It got like 20,000 views. So I uploaded another one and it got like 30,000 views. And then it kept going and kept going and kept going. And suddenly I'm here. And I think like that's also why I think very grateful for my job because I realized like this was, I kind of just chanced into this. Yeah. And so like I do have to imagine like what that other path would have been. And I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much.
You just kept doing something you liked and it grew and snowballed.
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's one other thought I have in terms of, you know, what title you give this chapter in your life. So someone else who wrote about chapters and eras in life was Nietzsche. And he actually wrote a parable in his piece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I'm probably getting this wrong. But he said that, hey, human beings, we actually go through 3 chapters, 3 eras in life. He said we start off bound under the constraints and obligations as others, as camels, weighed down by what others tell us to do. Then the second era is we become lions and tigers, aware of the obligations and restrictions and chains that others place around us and actively fighting to throw them off and do against what we've been told. But the third, the ultimate, is actually just to be a baby. That's to be in a state of flow. You're not aware of the obligations. You're not doing what people have told you. You're not doing what people have told you not to do. You're kind of just doing what you want. And I bring that up because I think that's where life gets really interesting. When you get to that third era, that's what eventually helped me decide to make a big change in my life. I should stop doing what I think others want or what they don't want and just do what I want. And that's why I think it's really cool. In a way, underlying everything, even at 18, when you're telling me, I just started to make videos because I like to make videos. And they just like started to do really well. And I kind of just followed the thread, its progression. Well, that's what I'm sort of hearing. You said you just really like to make videos and it blew up. I'm like, that's really neat. You were just being yourself. You were like, I'm going to do it.
The words.
How so?
I thought you were doing an impression of me.
Oh, no, actually.
Sounded like you... Anyway, sorry, I'm distracting you.
Oh, no worries.
That was a very good point. I'm sorry.
That was actually me not being an impression of you. But now I'm like, maybe parts of how I was talking reminded you of you?
Sure.
You know, just as a total side point, I've had multiple people tell me that I sound like Graham Stephan. Like, independently. I actually don't think I sound like Graham Stephan. And yet sometimes...
I could see how people could see that, but like, I don't think so. That's not that.
Regardless, I think what's really fascinating about you is even at age 18, just by producing videos and doing what you wanted to do, it helped kind of take you to here. You were already in that third and final era. You were already.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, tell me more.
I mean, first of all, like when I started making YouTube videos, I didn't tell anyone about it because I just I was doing it because I liked doing it, and then like it just went from there. And because like I guess that kind of actually feeds into the whole third chapter thing, but like it was more so just like I was doing it because I liked doing it, and then suddenly it consumed my life. But I was like definitely in that, especially that era. It was I think I was much more concerned about what others would think about it because, especially like I think especially at the phase where it was like before I had proved it, like I had built legitimacy through numbers.
Yeah.
Because I think like that's like the era when it can be almost like that's when you are worried at least about getting judged by others. I think is when you've yet to prove yourself, because like once you've proved yourself, then you've proved yourself, so you don't really need to worry about what others think because they're going to think positively because you've proved that you're successful in like your creative endeavor. But when you're the starving artist or whatever, then you are worried about it because you don't feel like you have something to prove yourself. Of course, like I think that's short-sighted because I think there's nothing cooler than people following what they want to do. And I think like, at least that's how I perceive others. And I think the majority of people actually perceive that the same. So I think I don't know why people often think that themselves when they know that they're impressed by others who follow their passions. But anyway.
So today, do you think, are there still things you're trying to prove?
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be like, I would want to say no, but like, yeah.
What's the biggest thing?
I mean, I personally, like right now, I'm just motivated by like just being the absolute best content creator in existence.
Nice.
And I know that that's a goal that like can never be met realistically, but I think having that goal, like that is legitimately like where I see, like, I want to, like, this is another thing that I've told my team, like, our core competency, it's stupid simple. It's making the absolute best videos possible. Yeah. And it's like literally that simple. And there's no reason why any content creation, YouTube channel, whatever, should have any goal except for that. I mean, I guess some might be like having the most monetizable content out there, but at least the majority of creators, I think, are more in it for the creative side than the money. But yeah, like, so it's like that goal, and like there's many people with that exact same goal. And I think that's exactly why it's the right goal to have.
I love that. I actually didn't know that. The mission is to be the best YouTuber, period.
I actually think I would blow it up past YouTuber because like what we've realized, I think this is actually the point that I was talking about earlier when I said I was going to bring it back to a point, is like all of our job security, myself and everyone that works for me, our job security shouldn't be based on YouTube. It should be based on the content. Because if we there's always a place since the beginning of, not the beginning of time, but since the beginning of human civilization, there has always been a way to monetize content that people want to watch or listen to or read or consume in some different way. And I think we need to realize, like, if we just understand how to make the absolute best content possible, there will always be a way to monetize that until the end of the earth.
I love that. I think for me, it's ambitious, but my co-founder and myself, our goal is to IPO, billion-dollar company. And I'm rationally aware of how low the odds are. And yet the whole point is that it's hard.
Yes. I mean, I think your goals have to be hard. I mean, especially like, I feel like I'm in a very lucky position where I have accomplished a lot of my goals. And so I almost think that like, and there's that whole thing about like, people who summit Everest, then they suddenly get thrown into depression or like, actually, I think it's more common, like the 7 summits. The whole concept.
There's Kilimanjaro and a few
it's like
others.
Climbing the tallest summit on every continent, and that's like a big thing that alpinists do and stuff, and it's like a really big goal. And then it's commonly like they complete it, and then it's just like, what next?
Yeah.
Like once you've reached the top, there's like nothing to do. And it's a fair, I don't know how much of this is just like story, but like from how I've heard it, it's very common for climbers to like go into a state of depression over a few months when they've completed a goal like that. And so having an impossible goal, or at least a near impossible goal, I think is great because it just keeps you on that path, assuming you want to do that. Not everyone should should feel like they want to, kind of perpetually be on that path. But personally, I quite enjoy that pursuit. So it's worth having that kind of perpetual, and that this is like, especially mine, like that goalpost is always moving.
Well, that's actually the true ending to Sisyphus' tale, right? Is one must have thought Sisyphus was happy because the journey was the whole point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do a level 3. I think we're ready.
Oh boy, this has been slow pace of questions, but that's a lot of text. I just saw a big block of text.
Both players share something you're most grateful for in this current moment.
In this current moment. Oh boy. How do I interpret current moment? Like right now?
That's up to you. It could be
Okay.
slightly more than a moment.
I think one thing that I'm often very grateful for is the fact that I am 24 years old and I am able, like, I can still fail tremendously and be fine.
Yeah.
Like I can destroy everything that I've built professionally and personally, and I have the time to pick it back up and recover.
Totally revamp yourself. A
Right.
different Sam, a different era.
Which is just like, I feel like that gives a really good position to be in business because I can be high risk. I can be what I perceive as high risk. I think what I perceive as high risk is actually relatively low risk, but like it allows, I think, like with that sort of realization, and I would couple that with just like financial security. The fact that I have financial security means that I think the kind of risks that I can take professionally and personally are much bigger. And I don't think the same can be said for, someone who's starting a company or growing a company at 40 or 50 or 60 years old, because they have to think, more about how this will impact them in 2 decades. I don't have to worry too much about how this will impact in 2 decades because I know hopefully there's going to be a decade, a third or fourth and fifth decade after that.
I like that. The freedom to try things that you're not sure will work.
I think it's just like the freedom to fail.
Yeah. Wow,
It's a
that's
good place to be in.
powerful. I think for myself, I'm going to say I'm grateful that I have something that I actually care deeply about whether it fails. Building off of yours.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, one, I love your point on the freedom to fail. And I think I've also tried to construct my life these past 2-3 years to mentally get to that place of psychological safety.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, for me, funnily enough, I never would have been able to do what you were doing when you were younger. The same way you perceive, hey, I'm young, that's exactly why I can do so many things, is exactly why I thought to myself, but I haven't done anything yet. And so for me, weirdly, spending all of these years working at big companies is what I needed for my psychological safety, because then I reached a point where I said, even if I fail, I can just go back and it's going to be okay. And so I similarly reached that point, psychological freedom. And then for me, it was, okay, but like, now what do I do? Something worth caring about. And I'm happy I have that now.
Yeah. And I think it's different for everyone. I know that like a lot of people who, for example, went and worked at McKinsey, they see that as their like freedom to fail in a way, because they can like go off, do a startup, fail big, and then they'll be welcomed back with open arms because they have that on their resume.
But it's a tricky trap, right? Option value to always optimize and chase after that. I stayed at McKinsey longer than I would have. I actually got my job offer from Facebook, Instagram after 2-3 months. And I ended up turning it down and staying for the proper like 1.5 to 2 years because McKinsey promises you an offer to return.
Right.
It's the ultimate potion, the elixir to insecure overachievers. Hey, if you leave and stay here a certain amount of time, I promise we will take you back if you leave in good standing. Here's a written letter attesting to that.
It's insane. It's like the fact, it's like to be able to always feel like you can go back and work at a company that you can make decent, like you are, no matter where you are at that company, you're going to be making a very comfortable
Usually.
amount of money, and have that through life. So it's like, it's always like, I want to always is that like, not everyone wants to go high risk,
Right.
make their profession their life and all that. Like for some people, just like they're optimizing for different things, and just having a stable 9 to 5. Well, we know it's not really 9 to 5 in the consulting life, but having a stable kind of job at a big company to fall back on, where you don't really need to worry about your next round of funding, for example. It's a really good place to be in too.
And that was the allure. That was the trap to me, because I so wanted it. I ended up staying way further than I would have, stopping me from taking the risk that another part of me wanted to take. And Sam, the funny thing is I will never return.
But you got it.
I got it, but that's the
But
funny
does that
thing.
feel like you can, do you feel like you can make bigger swings because of it?
Wow, what a great point. I think, honestly, it did. When I got it, I think it did empower me to just totally move from the East Coast into the West Coast, which I'd never been before, leave my relationship, leave all my friends, and just enter a totally different industry. Because I think that was in the back of my mind. So as much as I was going to poo-poo it for enticing me with this desirability, keeping me something I didn't want to do, at the time, I look back, I'm like, Sam, you're right. It did help. All right, level 3. This time you go ahead and pull one. We'll do a couple more.
We're hitting pace now.
Exactly. We're deep into it.
Oh boy, what do you admire most about me?
Wow, actually, that's very tied to what you just said. I think the ability to take what could be perceived as high risk decisions that you're able to, because you've built that psychological safety in your mind. I deeply admire that. And actually, just talking with Brian, Real Engineering, earlier, he said much to the same. He sees you pushing forward content in a way that he wants to follow and match. And I think every step of what you've just described, you, an 18-year-old, easily could have just gone into consulting, deciding to go make YouTube. Then, hey, worried about the viability of YouTube, looking at so many other options, deciding to take the higher risk option and go for it, building it into a company, then not just having one channel, but launching into another, and yet a third that is now entirely different than what you've done before with you now on camera. Each of those is actually a risky decision in the sense that maybe conditionally you were like, this isn't, but it was different from what you were doing before. And each time you did it. And that's cool, because the biggest decisions that affect your life aren't on a day-to-day basis. Do I go to this or do I go to that? It's, am I going to do something new and different? And you've repeatedly been hitting that over and over again. And regardless of the motivations and reasons why, right? Hey, I'm young, I'm 24. Oh, I'm just going to make videos and see what happens. The fact that you've still done it, I think, is just really cool. First. Second, you're also just like really smart.
2?
Well, the second is just more 1A, 1B, I guess.
Okay.
The second, this is more just of a freebie, right? You're also
It's
just
making me feel like I got to really.
no. I think it's more just you're just really smart. I think this is obvious to anybody who watches you. It's like kind of the whole point of your first channel is to share what you've learned with others. But every time I talk with you, I'm just repeatedly reminded of just how gosh down smart you are. And I enjoy it. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, I think mine for you. I was trying to think of a good way to articulate it, but just like, I think the thing that I've constantly been impressed about kind of your approach to building your business is the fact that you've really tried to do it with like the human touch, I think, which is, not always easy to do when you're in LA. I think, there's a lot of different characters that I think you have to be able to work with and get along with and sympathize with and like genuinely see through their kind of public image into like the actual humans that they are. I think it's genuinely a skill and something admirable to have been able to do that so successfully. And I think in my observation, having seen Karat go from literally nothing to something quite impressive in my opinion, even if there's a big road ahead. the factor that has been, I think, most impressive is just your ability to kind of build a community around it, which has definitely worked out. And like the fact that like people are into Karat because of, I think, the just like small little, not really small, but just like, loose little community that you've built around it. And I think that's very impressive.
Oh,
and just like totally the right approach to be going too.
I really appreciate
and
that.
Again, it takes a lot of skill, I think.
That's going to keep a smile on my face for the entire month.
Nice.
Even when the weather gets
down
outside
to the
cold
50s?
and frightful. Exactly.
I did my best LA person impression by
suppose
putting on a hoodie when it's 60 degrees
in
out.
LA, it's really not that bad.
I woke up and it was 9 degrees out.
Damn.
When I woke up in Colorado this morning.
Well, emotionally, I'm going to stay warm and toasty thanks to that. And yeah, it kind of goes to like, that means a lot to me because it really fit philosophically and existentially with the decision I made when I left Instagram, where I was like, I really want to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I want to do? It's like, I so deep down want to be a creator. That's like even getting to do this with you on camera. I'm like, ooh, this is fun. And I so admire what you've done as a creator that it just makes me happy to be a part of it. And so for me, the relationship community parts, I was just been like, well, I really want to do this just anyways. Yep. And like now I actually have an excuse and justification to do so.
Yep.
Just makes it even better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The final question, if we will.
Final question.
Level 3.
Level 3. Got to be a banger.
This is a banger. When in this game did you feel most connected to me?
Oh. Wait, what were the questions again? I need to remember. I can't remember what happened.
It doesn't have to be the question. It can just be the moment, the conversation, the vibes, as they say.
I think hearing your story about, I'd known your kind of your resume, but I think I never really heard the kind of human side behind it, which I think gives a lot more context to why you're doing what you are now and the approach that you've taken and just like in general how you have become this era Eric.
Nice.
And not a prior era Eric. So, I think getting like the human understanding behind that.
I think similarly for me, because by the time I knew you, were already a very established creator. And so I was just like, oh, damn, like Sam, like Wendover Productions, like, whew. And also just getting to hear yourself being like, yeah, I like posted these and I like didn't tell anyone. It's just like, is this going to be a thing? Like, it's like, oh, like you also, I know this like sounds so obvious, but like you also had moments where you were like not sure. Yep. And I felt really connected to that because I see how successful you are today. And I'm like, whoa. And then to hear like, oh no, there were moments.
Constantly not sure, but
Yeah, I know that intellectually. And yet to just hear you describe like, I didn't even tell anybody. I was like, I don't know. I was like, oh yeah, like that. I deeply relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, every largest YouTube channel in the world, of which we are not there yet, but like they all started with some person just like deciding to upload a video pretty much. So
I love that.
It's like, and that's like, everyone always gets asked on like podcasts and like interviews and everything, like, oh, what motivated you to start? And I think like we've all created like our PR answers. Yeah. It's like, we literally just like uploaded a video,
just put it up.
And then we decided to do another one. And then we decided to do another one and et cetera until today.
Do it first.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Sam, thanks so much for making time today.
Thank you.
All right. This was excellent. Give me a hug.
All right.
How are you feeling?